Welcome back to the Hybrid Real Estate Professional Podcast, the show where we help you build wealth through real estate investing in just 20 minutes a day without sacrificing what matters most. I'm your host, Aaron Amin. My wife and I built a portfolio of 8 cash flowing rentals across 3 states while working full time and raising a family. A large part of our early success in building our portfolio came from a system I like to call the 20-minute investor. Today's show is a quick solo episode about a new approach to time blocking that, in my experience, is much more likely to actually work. At least it did for me. Most people treat time blocking like a diet. It works for a week, then real life hits. A kid wakes up early, a client meeting runs long, or your brain just isn't in gear. So today I want to share a new way of thinking about time blocking. And it actually is based less on the specific task and more about the type of task. This is a core principle from our 20-minute investor framework, and it's called offense versus defense. When my wife and I had twins in late 2023, my schedule completely evaporated as I knew it. I went from having a calm 5 a.m. morning routine that was very structured and regimented to maybe getting 4 hours of sleep per night and very little predictability. For a while, I beat myself up because I couldn't keep the same schedule that had got me to where I was at that time. But eventually I realized something. Time blocking doesn't fail because I'm lazy. It was failing because it assumed that my life would be predictable. So the solution for me was not to force more structure into a time when it clearly wasn't designed for that. It's to build a system that adapts to the season of life that you're in. Enter offense versus defense. So separating tasks into offense versus defense is a pretty simple idea, actually. Instead of trying to block time every day for a specific task, you divide it into 2 buckets. The first is offense. These are the things that grow your business. Networking, deal analysis, submitting offers, creating content, anything that builds some type of momentum that has the potential for growth. Defense are the things that protect what you've built. Paying bills, reviewing reports, bookkeeping, checking in with your team, renewing insurance, anything that can protect your downside risk. And both of those obviously are very important. But here's how that applies to time blocks. Most people build their calendar in a way where if you're trying time blocking, you try and put a specific task and you plan it out 6-7 days in advance. And what happens is, as people feel constrained by these obligations that they've set for themselves, that works for some people, but for others, they need a little more flexibility and fluidity to the way they approach time blocking. So for me, what I ended up doing was actually setting up time blocks based just on those categories, offense versus defense. And in prioritization for the week ahead, I would actually look at how whatever needed to be done for the coming week, I would lay it out and I would see what's the kind of spread of offense versus defense activities. What's interesting about this is that obviously different seasons of life bring different activities. So for example, before we had kids, we were acquiring houses very quickly. At that point, my calendar was about 80%, if not 100% offense tasks. So I was analyzing deals, I was sending offers, I was very aggressive about growing our business. Hey there, before we finish the show, I wanted to tell you about the new school community I launched with my business partner, Nathan. We took our flagship remote real estate investing course, an entire library of workshops and templates, and made them available for free. We had 50 members join in the first 7 days, and we're in there every day helping other investors scale their portfolios sustainably in 20 minutes per day. You can join for free at aaronamin.com/school. That's school with a K, SKOOL. Hope to see you there. Now back to the show. Now, on the flip side, when we had the twins and when we had our kids in general, we flipped into a much more defensive posture. So I still had some offense in the sense that I obviously run a podcast. I have still continued to network and build relationships, even though I wasn't in an active buying posture. But most of the actual time blocking that I did at that point was around defense. So we did some restructuring of our portfolio. We tightened up some of the systems with our property managers. We actually ended up selling a couple houses that we felt were no longer serving our long-term interests. So kind of having these little spaces to be very intentional and specific about these defense activities proved to be very important. But the point about the time blocking is that instead of trying to forecast 14 days in advance, 7 days in advance, it was more block the time, protect it, lay out what needs to be done, And every day, you have that protected time, and you can slide whichever task is needed that you feel will move the needle the most. So the other reason this system actually works is because it aligns with Parkinson's law, the idea that work expands to fill the time available. So if you give yourself an hour for these tasks, you'll probably take that entire hour. But one of our prevailing philosophies in the coaching that I do and in the academy that I run is if you give yourself 20 minutes, you'll find a way to squeeze the value out of that 20 minutes. And a lot of what we've taught, and this has been proven in the way that I built my portfolio, in the way that my business partners built his portfolio. If you assign yourself those constraints, the majority of activities, especially when it comes to rental real estate, can fit into those blocks. So rather than time blocking full days and trying to color code my calendar a bunch of different ways, which I believe can work under certain circumstances, I try and protect 20 minutes per day. I try and label it offense or defense. I try and create a list of tasks and slide them in as needed. I know I've repeated that a few times, but that's because I feel confident that this is a much more flexible and effective way of time blocking for busy people. I usually typically block my week out on Sunday night. So I put those time blocks where it looks like it's going to make sense based on my work schedule. And then I make that task list. And I think just doing that one simple thing, that also only takes 20 minutes. And doing that sets me up well for the week. And it makes me a much more effective investor. It protects my time, which then in turn makes me a much better husband and father, which at the end of the day is what is most important to me. So that is a little bit behind the scenes of how I time block. We actually have an entire workshop called the 20-Minute Investor that's available for free at 20minuteinvestor.com. And you can download actually not only the workshop, it's about a 50-minute workshop. We have an accompanying document that breaks down this entire philosophy and even some more detail. And then my business partner, Nathan, and I actually put together a bunch of different workflows that we've used, different examples of offense versus defense activities. We got Loom videos that break down how we approached it in our lives, so you can put that into practice right away. So if you enjoyed this, I'd love to hear from you. I always appreciate getting feedback on whether you like the topics I'm covering or not. So shoot me a DM, drop me a comment wherever you're listening to this, and check out the 20-Minute Investor. Appreciate your time and best of luck. Thank you for making it to the end of today's episode. As you may know, podcasts are very difficult to grow organically. If you're getting value from today's episode, I'd deeply appreciate if you can take 30 seconds to leave my show a 5-star rating and review. This will go a long way to helping me reach more listeners just like you. Thank you so much in advance.